And welcome to an all new episode. Shaggy is back. Your throat's feeling better, I take it?
Oh, absolutely. Much better. Still have some issues coughing here and there, but my throat's no longer bothering me like it was.
Oh, that's good. I was going to try to get something set up today, and you're like, well, I want to, as long as I'm able to watch the Super Bowl. I was like, go ahead and watch it first. I'll give plenty of time. Then all of a sudden, oh yeah, the Falcons are playing. Oh yeah, there's lots of other stuff that intersects with pro football, no matter how people feel about the NFL. So the only reason I even remotely cared is because Bill Goldberg was an Atlanta Falcon, and I'm looking for the results of the game to be used on future shows, to where Paul Heyman suggests that Goldberg will go down just like the Falcons did at the Super Bowl. Good material. So that was pretty cool. It's like, oh yeah. Were there any good commercials, by the way?
There were some really funny commercials. I don't remember any real standout ones right off the top of my head. There was let me think here. There were two commercials that were by T-Mobile, the ones that I can think of right now, that were kind of playing around with the idea of 50 Shades of Grey and all that stuff, and I had an actor that usually does weird really, really well. And let me think, what was that movie she was in? She's been in multiple movies, but she was in Dinner with Schmucks. She played one of the secretaries or something like that, but she's really goofy and really weird.
Oh,
yeah. So anyway, it was pretty funny. I liked those, and then there were some other good ones too, but I can't remember them right now.
Yeah. My girlfriend had the NFL app on her phone, and she's with Straight Talk, but since that phone bounces off of Verizon's towers, NFL app saw her as a Verizon user, so she got to watch the Super Bowl for free off the app. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and she saw the commercial and was laughing at it, and I'm like, they were talking about the whole billing, if you like being tortured by billing or whatever, and I'm like, oh. I'm like, yeah, maybe you should focus on actually adding to your network so that you have coverage in certain areas first before doing that. But interesting commercial from what I understand. Somebody mentioned on my feed something about Mr. Clean.
Yeah, there was a Mr. Clean commercial that was pretty funny. I actually missed part of it. I was paying attention to something else at that time. It was still pretty funny. But what I did catch was like the Mr. Clean guy like dancing and stuff and cleaning some lady's house. And she's sitting just staring at him, and it's got his ass facing her, and she's just like watching him, and then it turns into her actual husband or something like that, and he's a little bit more like me, pudgy and stuff. He's got a beard and whatnot. And she just basically tackles him over the couch, and she's kissing him and whatnot. It was pretty funny.
And some people had mixed reaction to Lady Gaga. A lot of people thought she was pretty good. A lot of people thought she was blah. Nothing controversial, just good old-fashioned singing.
I thought it was a pretty decent halftime show. I don't think it was over the top or anything. I don't think it was like the best one that we have ever had or anything like that. But I thought it was pretty good. It was entertaining.
So, when I was watching the Chiefs and Steelers at Players, and local restaurant here in Warrensburg. And of course, being disappointed by this yet again, which is why I quit watching football for the longest time, because I got tired of them blowing it. But I started noticing how you see little drones flying around with cameras on them now. And I'm like, oh, wow. So, and you're seeing all sorts of different camera angles. Some of them adapted from Vince McMahon's XFL too. Apparently they borrowed a few ideas from him on that and combine it with new technology like a drone with a camera in it. You can get all sorts of good angles and different perspectives, and even combine it for a 360 type of thing. Since I haven't been following pro football in America for quite some time, how long have they had that stuff?
The drones, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's at least been in the last 2 or 3 years. But I think before they started using the drones heavier, they'd have cameras that would sit on, depending on the stadium. They'd have cameras sit on like a guide wire that runs through the center of the stadium that kind of can run back and forth and get some camera angles that way. Now I don't know if it can laterally move up and down the field, but I know it can go across the field. And they gather some camera angles that way, but not quite to the level that they can with drones. But they've been, at least at minimum last year, I know they had used them for the 2015 season.
Oh yeah, and now you see teams using tablets instead of good old-fashioned pencil and pen and paper. Microsoft products, unfortunately, but the hardware is supposed to be really rugged in case they get mad and throw it onto the ground. I'm like, wow, they're using more and more technology just to get stuff done. And
when I saw you put some of those links about the technology that they use, I noticed I had read something last year that they started, not all teams, but certain teams in the NFL are actually using RFID tags and certain pieces of equipment to actually help track players' movement and when they're going for practices and things like that, to help train them better. Also, in for the sake of safety, to try and make sure they're not making movements that could actually harm them.
Yeah, and there's like new helmets, like the Chiefs, I think, were using some of the newer helmets designed to kind of minimize concussion rates, which, I've been noticing that, it's supposed to be like entertainment and sports and all that, but a lot of innovations going on right now in that. And a lot of industries are intersecting it, including video industry and computer industry. Like back in I think 2002, I was at this special event on campus where it was aimed at small business mindset and technology and what have you, and we had temporary log-ons and everything else, and we actually broke up into groups and came up with product ideas, and one of them involved a phone where you could actually watch television on your phone. And now look where we're at. Like we're already imagining stuff like that happening, and now you can watch a football game or whatever sporting or entertainment event on your phone. Some cases for free, depending on how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
My case, I probably could have done it through Verizon, but my Wi-Fi was on, so it wasn't gonna connect. But one of the things that also noticed that NFL is also awarded, 3 startups, at least in the recent past, to develop, more safety stuff too. Plus, of course, you have, former football players becoming pro wrestlers. I think even one for Kansas City Chiefs is studying to become a doctor, even, if memory serves. That he's studying for his PhD, and I think he focuses primarily on that probably during the off season, which is pretty cool. So he's using his football career to pay for school.
It's a good way to do it.
Oh yeah,
they get paid really well. So
plus, of course, no Super Bowl's gone into overtime. No matter how you feel about Tom Brady, he of course has the 5 Super Bowl wins with the same coach. So, and of course, you're still going to have people complain that they must have cheated somehow to win. I just wish the court system would not have wasted their time on this.
Yeah.
But that's life. Like, did you notice anything else unique about this, or? Because like I said, it felt like I was out of the loop a little bit. I'm like, the football helmets are looking a little bit different, and they're actually.
Go ahead.
And they're using like Surface tablets and everything else, and more mobile-based stuff to kind of get things done. I'm like, oh my. But then again, you've followed football more than I have.
Yeah, some of the technological type things we've talked about so far, they've used for the past 2 or 3 years or so. I didn't notice the Surface tablet thing until I think it was last year. I wasn't sure if it was Surface tablets or not, but I did notice that it was a tablet, at least, in last year's Super Bowl. The Panthers had one, and what's his face, Cam Newton, when he'd go back to the bench, he'd have one in his arms like this, looking down at it, trying to figure out if it was a mistake or something, or trying to plan the next thing, things like that. I did notice a little hiccup, I think, with the Falcons, some of their technology. The quarterback usually has a mic inside the helmet, so that way he can communicate with the coach. So that way the coach can make a call and tell the quarterback, hey, do a flea flicker, or I want you to do a trick play and put some receiver in a wildcat position, and then have him throw it to you, and you run it across for first down or something. And he was trying to call a timeout. He's rushing to call a timeout, and most of the offensive line was kind of confused and walking around. And he goes back to the sideline, and I saw him mouthing the words that, or one of the other staff for the Falcons mouthing the words that, I couldn't understand you. And he's pointing at his helmet and stuff like this after he took it off. So I guess they were having some technical difficulties there for a little bit.
Oh my. Was this in the second half, or?
I think it was close to the beginning of the second half. Yeah, when I noticed it, I'd have to go look back at it again.
So it's not perfect by any means, but it's helped. Because for the longest time, already knew that, there was microphones and things like that, radio waves. What do you think? What do you think they're going to do next to kind of make this a little bit different?
Well, I'm not sure, but I do know, at least from seeing some commercials and stuff like that from watching football this last year, that there's some companies that are trying to work to improve the different some of the fields that aren't actual organic type fields. They're actual synthetic and have different types of like there used to be the thing called AstroTurf, and then here in Arrowhead Stadium they actually put in a giant heating system underneath the soil that actually heats it up, and it's supposed to help prevent, I don't know, icing over or something like that. It's supposed to be better for the players, but they're looking into other technologies to help players prevent injuries related to ankles and stuff like that based on the type of surface that they're going to be playing on. But their primary focus in a lot of the technological advancements is usually safety.
Like the new style helmets that you see kind of almost look multi-layered, to where if they get hit really hard, it's going to cushion them so that they're not getting a concussion so much.
They've done a lot to try and to go into research into concussions themselves, and then definitely tons and tons of money's been spent on trying to prevent concussions, because that's the problem with a concussion is that it can actually, not only does it could it ruin the player's career, but it can ruin someone's life depending on how bad the concussion is.
Yeah, like I don't remember which one I read about, whether it's baseball or football, but former professional athlete, he can't really even get into hard and heavy workout anymore because it causes his head to spin. Like once his heart rate goes up to a certain level, bam, he's done. So he has to take it easy for the rest of his life, and that's not fun. And from what I've seen, you can notice that now you have things like instant replays and other things. They're being used in other places too to kind of help their industries along and figure out what happened, what went wrong, or what went right. Trying to think of some stuff off the top of my head, like you can have reviewing of footage if somebody breaks into a local business, that sort of thing. That kind of technology has gotten to that point where you can do all sorts of things with it now. And if the NFL hasn't influenced the innovation and the development and everything else, they've at least adopted it. Like with tablets and things like that, they've adopted it to enhance their product. So pro sports aren't a complete waste. I've got my misgivings about taxpayer money being used on stadiums, but other than that, I do see the use for them. Let people have their escape is what I say from real life. But of course, the Patriots won, and I'm disappointed because you know what? It'd be nice to see another team win, but we'll see next year. I may actually start watching football a little bit again. Not all the time, every now and then. Because as I was listening to the game, I was like, wait a minute. All kinds of interesting stuff has happened. So it was pretty exciting. Because RFID and equipment, you mentioned that. We have, of course, drones. Even politics intersected itself somehow, some way into football. Because the Patriots owner was a huge supporter of the current president. Because apparently after his wife died, every week he would get a call from that person, which is interesting. So it's just it's one of those things where a lot of stuff intersects with it. Even in pro wrestling, you find a lot of former football players performing in the ring when, for some reason, their careers in football doesn't work out. In the case of Goldberg, it was an injury. Kevin Nash, I don't think he played football, but he played basketball. He blew out his knees. And there's plenty of others who were former football players who sometimes make it, sometimes they don't, but they give it a try. So, there's that. So has there been anything else that has caught your attention subject-wise? I think we're all talked about. I think we're both talked out about football.
I'm still recovering from yesterday and worn out, so my body's kind of going.
No, I completely understand. And by the way, we have officially launched our Patreon page, patreon.com/thenextreport. And in this video, I'll add the link to it. When the podcast feed is updated, it'll also be added in the show notes, things like that. And I'm being realistic. I don't expect, money to pour in right away. But each month, because I finally figured out how to solve the problem of the first perk, make the newsletter mainly for you, myself, and everybody else who's currently, working on this thing, to kind of, hey, this is what's going on, what we're working on, that sort of thing, and progress. And then when people start coming in, and at a later date, everybody will get a nice preview, and they'll be like, oh, this is so cool. I'm like, I decided not to do it with the first one because I'm trying to figure out how to best format everything and what have you, and which technologies to use, because to be quite honest, I don't feel guilty for using Microsoft Office anymore, because the bash command line is now available on Windows 10. So it's still beta, but it's available. So that segment's going to intersect at some point. In some cases already has. But I'll still primarily record off of this system, and if the other system to my right works out a little bit better, I may just switch over to that. I just don't know how well HDMI is supported right now off that video card with open source drivers. I'll have to switch it out and see. Plus, I'm still getting acclimated with all these other changes going on in my life. All good changes. So I won't reveal it here, because that's material that I'll save for the newsletter, which people can get access to by pledging just $1 a month. It's pretty comparable to a magazine subscription, $12 a year. So is that about right for a magazine subscription? About $12 on average?
Usually. So some magazines are a lot more expensive. So
oh yeah,
it's pretty cheap actually.
And of course we have goals. If we get to a certain point, we'll upgrade the hosting so that can allow for more traffic. And for those who are wondering why host the podcast on the web hosting itself instead of using other services to ease the bandwidth woes, that's because the idea is to get traffic to the website. If somebody's downloading the podcast from the website, that's traffic to the website, which increases site ranking, meaning more people will find it more easy. And that's kind of my logic behind it. Also, before we forget, I'm going to pull my phone out and try to look this up real quick to see how they're doing. The Reglue project, last I checked, was nearly at $2,000.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but let's see what this says. Actually, they have passed the $2,000 mark, and they've got some really, really good stuff there if you just want to use that to purchase some technology. They refurbished and upgraded a Dell 19.5-inch all-in-one touchscreen system. If you go all the way down, the internal SSD drive already got purchased. But there's also an Inspiron E6410 Core 5i5 plus extras, and they managed to up this thing to like 8 gigs of RAM. And it has, if what I looked at is correct, it likely has an NVIDIA Quadro card in it. And it's $350 for a system with 8 gigs of RAM, and it's not too bad. And a 500 gig hard drive. So we'll share the link in this finished video as well. But check out the Reglue project. They do a lot of good work for their local community down in Texas. And the idea is to have them make their goal for the year, because this person, Ken Starks, is going to eventually be passing this organization along to a like-minded person, because he's getting up there in years and he's not going to be able to do this for much longer. While his mind, as he put it, while his mind can still basically think straight. I'm heavily paraphrasing that. But the idea is to let this thing keep going, and eventually, hopefully, the right person comes along, this thing can actually expand out into other communities. Because what they do is they take computers, they put them, with Linux, by the way. They have their own respin of, I think, Linux Mint. Yep. And they put them on these computers, and they put them in the homes of kids whose parents can't otherwise afford them, because a lot of more and more schools are going towards, online-based assignments. You have to be able to have something with a word processor that you can print out or submit homework and things like that. And there's a reason why they don't use Microsoft Windows, and that's because of licensing costs. And this is a good way for them to not have to deal with that. They do acquire legit licenses for Windows when inside of a virtual machine, when there's specialty applications, that's accessibility applications that a person actually needs. But beyond that, and some of these people who have gotten these systems have gone on to college, by the way, and everything else. So that's actually helping quite a bit. I'm seriously thinking about chipping in a few bucks myself after I get paid this week. So I'm super excited. By the way, any perks there that you see that are interesting to you? They're actually selling a Tuck Squeeze toy too.
Huh, that's interesting.
They're saying a mostly useless Tuck Squeeze toy.
Mostly used.
Overpriced, but this is a fundraiser. Kicking $20 and help us out to ship overseas at $10. Oh, they've got 25 of them. They also have a 16 gig persistent USB drive. And they've They call it their reglued sentiment bootable drive, because this uses cinnamon, obviously. And of course, they have this whole $30 thing, which basically, they're trying to also collect enough money to get internet service for about 3 months so that parents can start budgeting for it. And of course, they've got, hard drives, a hard drive, an Android cookbook. They've got some cool stuff on here that they're trying to use as perks to kind of get people to go, okay, let's see what we can do with this. Because the biggest thing, it's not equipment that's the issue. People donate equipment and things like that to them all the time. Where they run into trouble is they have to have enough gas to be able to deliver that stuff to the organizations in question. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. We'll include a link to that, and next week we'll maybe talk about something really, really fun. I'll leave it up to you to pick a topic.
I'll have to look into something. I'll see if I can find something I've been looking at recently.
Oh, yeah. Do what?
I said I'll see if I can look at some stuff I've been looking at recently. Some things for work and some technology-related things, and see if I can find something related to that, or maybe break out of my comfort zone and find something new and interesting.
And hopefully Stephen Kelly and I can join each other, or be on the same show at the same time to talk pro wrestling, because we have not done that in ages. And there's a reason he hasn't been available as of late. It's good news. Good news for him. So things are getting very interesting in a hurry. But I think that's pretty much it for now. So entertain yourself, educate yourself, empower yourself. I'm Thomas.
I'm Shaggy.
And you guys have a good, wonderful day. The show will be up on Tuesday, but you can watch it here first. See ya.